This conference will now be recorded.
Sometimes Scrum Master, right? So three roles we could see. Wherein product owner is a role which normally played by a business analyst in most of the projects, wherein they'll be considered as a client representative. At the same time, who defines the features of the project, developing user stories and all, everything will be done by the product owner. Coming to the role of a Scrum Master, Scrum team, wherein these people, combination of all developers, testing team and all, they'll be involving in project development. Scrum Master is a role played by the person who have project management experience in most of the occasions, wherein allotment of work, tracking the progress of the work, all these things will be taken care of by the Scrum Master. Right? Three different roles: product owner, Scrum team, followed by Scrum Master. Now, I'm going to explain you about how projects will be implemented in Agile. Right? What process normally we follow to implement the project in Agile. I'll be explaining now. So apart from that, I'm going to explain you about what is user story and how do you write user stories as a product owner, as a role of product owner, and how are we going to write user stories and all everything. I'll explain. Understood? Clear? Monty and Rekha. Clear or not? Right? So coming to the explanation part, as far as the project development in Agile is concerned, right? So we need to know about how projects will be implemented in Agile. So if you see, as far as the project implementation in Agile is concerned, will be as follows. Project implementation in Agile, right? So this is the point. So when project implementation is Agile comes into picture, the process will be as follows. Client has some business problem. So the large scale of solution we are providing large scale of solution we are providing to the client will be called as epic, right? So large scale of solution will be called as epic. From this epic, from here, we divide the pieces of work. If the project is very large, I think last time I told you when there are projects which are large in size, multiple agile teams works in different locations, right? That's what I told you.
Yep.
If the project size is very large, if not, it will be confined only to the single team. If it is confined to the large scale projects and all that, so wherein whatever the epic we're talking about, so that will be divided into pieces of work. From this, what we do is we define the features of the work, a piece of work I'm talking about, right? The kind of piece of work what you have received, right? On that you define the features of the work, right? From here, whatever the functionalities, whatever the functionalities are we developing will be called as user story. Okay, because each and every functionality, for example, you are creating a login page. What we are doing here is we were writing a user story for the functionality what you are going to develop, right? One functionality you're writing for one user story. How many functionalities we have, those many user stories we develop. This is what generally we do in real time. So here what we do is whatever the functionalities are we developing will be called as user stories. From here we from here whatever the functionalities are we developing will be called as user stories. From here user stories will be kept in product backlog first. This is a repository. Product backlog is a repository where you are keeping all the product backlogs in all the user stories in that. Okay, this is what we call it as product backlog is, right? It's a repository. Means product backlog, we can say it's a repository where you are storing all the user stories in that, right? From here, whatever the user stories are we writing, everything will be kept under product backlog. Based on the prioritization, based on the prioritization, whichever user stories we want to develop will be kept in sprint. Okay, so we need to know two things. One is what is product backlog and what is meant by sprint. So these two things we must be knowing. Product backlog is a repository to keep all the user stories. Okay, this is what generally product backlog is. Sprint means collection of user stories, collection of user stories which are we developing. Understood, right? So product backlog means where we repository all the user stories. Sprint means collection of user stories which are we developing, right? What are all we are developing, we are about to develop. For example, we have 10 user stories in product backlog. We may require 4 now, all right? Okay, so for the customer. So those 4 user stories you're keeping and you're putting in sprint. This is what normally we do. Understood, right? First of all, whatever the feature we have, whatever the functionalities are we developing, each and every functionality will be written as a user story. And all these user stories will be kept in product backlog first in the beginning. It is very first thing. It's a repository, I can say, where all the user stories will be kept initially. From there, based on the priority, underline this point, based on the priority. Means if customer is asking out of 10, he is asking 1, 5, 9, 6, 7. Okay, assume that. So those you are picking up and you are putting all these in sprint. Okay, this is what generally we do, right? We want to develop will be kept in sprint. So this will be given this will be given 2 to 4 weeks of time. 2 to 4 weeks of time to complete. means minimum 2 to maximum 4 weeks of time will be taken for us to complete the whole sprint. Completion means right from analysis to total testing. We have to make everything ready and we need to deliver it. That is only the thing we need to do. This is what we do here, right? So whatever the user stories we are writing, everything will be kept under the sprint. From there, based on the priority, you take some sprints and all, user stories and all. We put it on first sprint. So that sprint timelines will be vary between 2 to 4 weeks. 2 weeks is the minimum time and 4 weeks is the maximum time. Now, you must know one point here. As I explained you, when I explained you about Agile, if you remember, under Agile umbrella, I told you there were different frameworks and processes. Hope you remember that, right? Scrum, XP, Kanban, and all that. So if we are using Scrum framework, the amount of time will be given from 2 to 4 weeks. At the same time, if we are working for the projects we are working, if you have taken XP as a process, right? Extreme programming as a process, the maximum time will be given is 2 weeks. This is the difference, right? So if you are working for Scrum, minimum 2 weeks to maximum 4 weeks will be given. Same time, if you are using XP as a process, extreme programming, the maximum time will be given is 2 weeks. This is how generally the process will be taken care of, right? So this is what generally we do, means 2 to 4 weeks of time will be given for us to complete. Means, okay, so once we complete the sprint, I'm saying, right? One sprint. So once we complete the sprint, that will be delivered to the client. Okay. So meanwhile, if there is based upon the urgency, you can create another sprint also. Right? It need not be a single sprint at a time. Right? You can create multiple sprint. Two sprints you can create meanwhile, and you can go it parallelly. You can do that. Understood? Clear? Uh, Clear or not?
Yeah.
Monty and
Yes.
Rekha. Yes. Right? So this is what generally we do. Means 2 to 4 weeks time will be given. So once it is completed, that will be delivered to the client. So it's a continuous process, right? Writing user stories, putting in product backlog, developing it under the sprint. Once sprint completed, you are giving it again. So it's a continuous process as long as we are getting requirements from the client. This is what the whole process and structure with respect to the agile is concerned. Understood? Clear? Rekha and Monty, right? Now, so what are the major elements and major artifacts which you could see in Agile? So in Agile, the very first thing what we do is once you keep all the sprint, all the product backlogs, all the user stories in product backlog, the very first thing what we do is sprint planning. The very first thing what we do. Okay, here we plan the sprint based on first point. Based on first point. The first point is based on the duration, based on the complexity, availability of manpower, etc. Right. So based on that, generally sprint planning will be made, right? How much time it will be taken for us to complete the specific task, whatever the task, how many user stories do we have? It is irrespective of it. What so each and every sprint planning, in each and every sprint, this sprint planning is a common thing, right? As long as we are working on sprints, this is a continuous process. So what we do is whenever you are going to start the sprint, we see the duration part, we see the complexity, we see the availability of manpower, all that. So normally the sprint planning will be organized by the Scrum Master in majority of the occasions. He is the one who looks after all that. This is what we do under sprint planning. Next, after sprint planning, the next thing is daily Scrum or Scrum meetings. Here we conduct regular meetings with here excuse me, we conduct regular meetings. Normally this will be between Scrum team and Scrum Master. Scrum team and Scrum Master will be taking care of this meetings, right? The regular meetings and all, everything will be conducted. So normally it will be conducted for about 15 minutes of time every day. Every day 15 minutes of time we are allocating for Scrum meetings. Here we discuss about what we did yesterday, what you're going to do today, followed by tomorrow. Yesterday, today, followed by tomorrow. This is what generally we do under daily Scrum. Next. After that, sprint review meeting. Sprint review meeting. Here, we review the sprint which are in progress, right? Because we see what difficulties we found, right? So based on the daily Scrum meetings and all that, so all these reviews and all, everything will be done here. Followed by this sprint retrospection, means once it is completed, after the sprint complete, we retrospect. Are we achieved the goals, right? Whatever the goals do we have and all, have we achieved or not, right? Are we achieved these goals or not? Everything will be done under sprint retrospection, right? This is what generally we do. After sprint retrospection, the next thing is product backlog refinement. We call it as product backlog refinement. What we do is product backlog refinement. Product backlog refinement is a continuous process, because why do we do product backlog? Because the reason of doing product backlog refinement, because whatever the user stories we have, right? For example, we kept 6 user stories in product backlog as of now. Whenever we are keeping it based on the priority, right? It need not be 1 2 3 4 5 6. Even though it is 1 2 3 4 5 6 initially, based on the prioritization it will be varied, right? 1 5 6 9, so on, right? This is how generally it will be changed, right? So we change it according to the requirements and all, right? So the refinement process is a continuous thing, right? Because whatever the first priority now may become the third priority after some time. Whatever the third one may be, first priority, right? It depends on the need of the customer, because we'll be in interaction all the time with the customer, so that whatever is required as on that time, so we do accordingly. This is what generally we call it as sprint product backlog refinement is. So product backlog refinement is a continuous process. So there is nothing like the limitations for that. But as far as artifacts is concerned, as far as agile process is concerned, the first thing is sprint planning we do, daily scrum, review followed by retrospection. This is how generally we work under agile teams. Understood? Clear? Rekha, Monty, clear or not? Right? So this is trending now. Whatever we discuss, like waterfall V model, of course, yes, we are using even till today. The question you people have raised that day, it's valid, because agile is trending, but it doesn't mean that 100% agile implementation, I don't say impossible, may not be possible all the time, because depends on the customer, depends on the situation, depends on the expertise what our people have, depends on the conditions. 100% agile implementation cannot be done, need not be possible, may not be possible. So it's a combination of traditional to agile we use. Normally all this decision will be taken care of by the project management team or project manager, right? So they'll take care of that. Means which model are we integrating here, because waterfall is the best model, one of its finest model and all that. Of course V model and all that, but it's a combination, whatever the process of traditional model, traditional to agile. Because I'll give you an example to you. If you adopt a traditional model, the biggest challenge here is timelines, because agile is purely a timeline based. If you start working on BRD documents, it takes days together. So that much time you cannot give in agile, right? If you start adopting agile, you cannot give that much time. So what you're doing here, you are focusing more on writing user stories. Means in spite of requirements communication, requirements communication, what you're doing, in spite of writing documents, you are depending on user stories. That way, what you're doing, you're reducing the complexity which you have to keep on your shoulders. Understood? Clear? Are you clear or not?
Yes.
Monty and Rekha, right? Understood. So it's a combination, depends on the situation to situation, it varies. Because if we feel that our people are not experienced in agile, it's first of its time, first of its kind we are implementing, we don't want to keep more pressure on our people, because their technical skills will get uh, will be deviated. That is one thing which is something it's a worrying factor. Hence what we do, sometimes when it is required we go for traditional part, sometimes we go for agile. So it's a combination we do. This is what generally the whole structure is all about. Understood? Clear? Rekha, Monty?
Yep. Yes.
Right? Now the thing what you have to know is, we have to know about product backlog. What is product backlog? Sorry, we have to know about user stories. What is user story? Why are we writing user stories and for what purpose, right? Why are we writing user stories and all, everything we must be knowing. So being a product owner, as I told you, user story writing is something very much essential and important. So user story, what does mean by user story? User story doesn't mean a short description of requirement. This is what user story is all about. Short description of requirement will be called as user story. I'll take you an example and I'll explain this. Example one, for example, customer is asking you to create a login page. Okay, for some reason, either it could be a Google Gmail account or whatever it is, login page is required for a customer. He is asking us. This is one functionality. Okay, assume that. Like this, there are n different functionalities we have. To write this, there is a standard template we follow, will be as it follows. As a system user, as a system user, the kind of action we are performing followed by the result. This is what generally user stories are. Means this is the step we follow. This is the step normally we follow in user stories. As a system user, the kind of action we are performing followed by result. Okay. Now, how to write user stories? Before you're going to write a user story using this template, what I told you for page and all that, there is a technique which we adopt. Normally, this is what we call it as 5W technique is. Remember, whatever the example I have taken is something very simple. It doesn't make much, you don't see much complexity in this. It's very easy to understand. But all the functionalities may not be remains the same, right? Some functionalities will be complex sometimes to understand because it's a group initiative. Everyone has to understand this. So in order to make ourselves understand, right? You are not writing anything on paper or something like in reality, but this technique we adopt when we are in interaction with in interaction among us. Normally this technique we follow 5W technique. 5W technique will be as follows: why, what, when, who, and where. 5W technique is. First question: why are we creating login page? Right. So this will make us understand. This will give us the clarity. Okay. Understand the need and importance of the customer. Right. What importance and the need customer has, that we come to know because of this. Point number one. Second, what are we creating in this? Means list of fields. What we are creating, all these things will be comes here. Okay. Now, when are we developing this? This talks about timelines of the project, means how much time we have to complete the work. This is what we call it as timelines. Next, who are developing this? Means list of people who are involving in the process. List of people means agile team and all that. Okay. Now, where are we implementing this? Where are we implementing this? Means environment, means software and hardware environment, right? So this 5W technique uses, it will be used for us to have a clarity of what we are going to develop, right? This is what generally 5W technique will be used here. Now, but don't you feel this is something incomplete? I hope, right? I think hope you, if you observe here, there is some incompletion you could see, because we didn't mention about how to develop. No, there is nothing here. Normally this how will be taken care of by the Scrum team. Okay, how to work on it will be, the execution part will be the responsibility of a Scrum team. They'll look after that, they'll take care of it. Now let me write a user story for an example one. Creating a login page will be as follows. The first example, user story one. User story one is creating a login page. This will be as follows. As a system user, I want, because from a end user perspective, we are understanding all this. Okay. So we have to, whenever you're writing your user story, you have to keep this in mind. As a system user, I want you to or someone to, okay, create a login page so that I can use the system. Understood? As a system user, I want you to create a login page so that I can use the system. Here, creating a login page is an action. Using a system will be the result. Understood? Rekha, Monty, clear or not? Right?
Yeah.
Creating a login page is an action which team has to perform. For what purpose? Using the system will be the final end result. This is what the result is. But now, here is the problem. I have not mentioned anything called how, right? How to do and all that, right? So for that, every user story must be accompanied with acceptance criteria. This is what generally user story is. Followed by user story, we have to write the acceptance criteria also, because this looks like incomplete. So we have to write acceptance criteria for any of the user story. So if you want to write acceptance criteria, this will be as follows. There must be two fields for username and password. There must be two fields for username and password, right? You need to have two fields for username and password. Next, must have a submit and cancel button. You must be having a submit and cancel button, because submit button for login, cancel button if you want to cancel the transaction at any point of time. Now, need to have an option for retrieving the new password if someone forgot. At the same time, need to have an option for new registration. Understood? Clear? Rekha, Monty, right or not? So these are the acceptance criteria. Means how to do and all everything. Here we are explaining. So every user stories will be accompanied with acceptance criteria, which is required. So this acceptance criteria will give you the guidelines, right? How to prepare and all, what to prepare, what way it has to be prepared. All these things, guidelines and all, everything will be given by the acceptance criteria. Understood? Clear? Clear or not?
Yeah.
Right? So this is how generally in user story followed by user story, how to write acceptance criteria will be prepared here. Understood? Clear or not?
Yep.
Rekha, one thing. Right? So this is how generally being a product owner, we have to write user stories based on this format. Okay. This is how we have to write user stories in real time. Tomorrow I'm going to explain you what is product backlog, because I just given you an explanation about product backlog, but not in detail, right? How it looks like and all everything. I have not explained it to you. That I'm going to explain you in tomorrow session. Are you clear, Rika, Monty?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So that explanation I'll be giving you in tomorrow session. Okay.
Okay. Can we get the recording? Because I think I might wanna go through this again. It was a lot today.
Yes. I'll give you the recordings by end of the day because I am in some personal work since 3-4 days.
Okay, that's fine.
All the video recordings, I'll download everything and I'll forward it to
Okay.
both of you.
Yep. Okay.
Monty, right, Rika?
Sounds good.
Okay. See you.
All right.
Right.